Welcome to a tutorial video on ink. In this video, I'm going to talk about not and function parameters. I'm going to continue on and build from the previous two videos. The video on variables, which introduced constants, and the last video, part 6, which talked about gather points and labeled options. In this part 7, we're going to talk about not and function parameters. So we see here at the top, returning to, as we talked about in two videos previous, the introduction of a constant. We see const name is equal to Dan. Line 3, though, is different. Line 3 acts like we're going to show the value of a variable, but behind what seems to be as if it was a variable are an open and closed parentheses. Well, this marks this as a function call. The function call day of the week is defined later in this down here on line 59. So we see here we can define functions similar to how we defined nots within ink using the function keyword. We also end the name of the function with an open and closed parentheses to signal that this is a function. So not only are we using the function keyword, we're also using open and closed parentheses. This allows us, if we wanted, to send it parameters. That is, we could send data in, get the function to do something, and then get data out. But in this case, I've not done that. We can see here the use of the tilde to tell ink this is some type of code to do something here. We're then using the return keyword to return a value. The value returned within the function day of the week is the string result of the shuffle that contains the days of the week. In previous videos, we saw the use of the shuffle within the curly brackets and the tilde to get some type of day of the week. We can return the string of that by using quotations around that. That is, we want the string value of the shuffle. Then we're using return keyword to return that. Back at the top on line 3, we're looking at that value. So again, within curly brackets to say, okay, show us the value of this, whatever this is. In this case, it's a function, and the function is returning the result of the shuffle. And we see that over here on the right-hand side. It was Sunday. So that function is working. So we can call a function within ink, get it to do something, in this case, get the result of a shuffle, then return that value. We can then show that value, similar to how in two previous videos back, we were looking at the values of variables in the exact same situation, curly brackets around that. So where do not parameters come into play in this? Well, nots actually work similar to functions in an interesting way within ink. So we can scroll down code here and we see line 39. It's a divert to a not called pizza underscore choices, and then it's using a parentheses, open and close, and within it are two quotation marks, noting, in this case, an empty string. Well, that's very odd, but what's interesting to know is that nots, as I said, work similar to functions, except instead of returning something as a function can, nots don't. They just do something with whatever is sent to it, whether it is sent as a parameter. So in this case, we can name the parameter, whatever value comes in first, as previous choice. So we see here on line 39, diverting to the not pizza underscore choices with the first parameter of an empty string. Then on line 41, the definition of the not pizza underscore choices, we see whatever that first parameter is called previous choice. Then immediately on line 43, I'll expand this just a bit so we can read it easier, we see that used. We see curly brackets because we want to see the result of this within the text. And we see previous choice not equal to an empty string, open and close quotes with nothing in it. If it's not equal to that, we should do something. And what it should do is show we've already talked about and then show the value of that. Notice down here for the choices that start on line 45, 48, 51. We see here a divert to the not pizza underscore choices and then values. In this case, we see pizza on line 46, salad on line 49, and nothing on line 52. This allows us to send a parameter to a not, a value to a not, that we can then use. In fact, we can see this. Let's jump down into this story and see that. So let's pick out something good. And then what do we want to eat? Well, notice here we didn't see that text because the first time we're into this not, it is equal to an empty string because we diverted starting on line 39. So the not parameter was empty, and so we didn't do anything. But if it's not empty, we will do something. So if we choose pizza, we see here we diverted to the not we're in, we looped it, and its previous choice is not equal to the empty string, and so we see the result we've already talked about having pizza. Notice because these are choices, using the star and not sticky, other than nothing here, which is a sticky choice, they don't repeat. So we talked about having pizza, we talked about having salad, and we can use nots in this way with parameters to keep track of knowledge, is one approach to do this. We can keep track of choices the player has made, as well as send the not information. For example, if we wanted to change the name of a constant, although we can't change the constant, but if we wanted to change it at the top of this from Dan to something else, we could send that information into the not and then do something with it. This allows knots to act similar to functions, again, to act on some input. However, and the difference between these is that a not cannot return a value, whereas a function can. So knots and functions can act very similarly, and they're defined very similarly. However, functions can return values, knots cannot. Both, however, can have parameters. They can both work on input sent to them. But again, a function returns, a not does not, or a not doesn't, if you'll pardon that pun. So as a review, we can define functions as I have here in this example by using the function keyword and an open and close parentheses. We can call the function similar to how I did here on line 3 by using those same parentheses to signal this is not just a variable, but in fact a call to a function. Functions, again, return values. Nots do not. However, and as we saw right here on line 39, we can send values to nots as parameters, use whatever we call it within its definition here on line 41, and then act on that input to do different things. In this case, in this particular project, we were keeping track of previous choices the player had made, pizza and then salad as we saw here, and because those choices collapsed each time, we didn't see them anymore, and so we could keep track of what the player was seeing using the ability to send parameters to a not. Again, as a very quick review, and as I've said multiple times, the differences between a not and a function is that a function can return and a not can't. However, both can take input, so nots and function parameters can look very similar and act in very similar ways. Thanks for watching.